everybody. My dad thinks his podcast is amazing, so please subscribe, give it 5 stars or whatever, and maybe he'll finally stop talking about it. Anyways, welcome to Sobriety.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Sober as Fuck. Before we get started, I just wanted to ask everyone a quick favor. If you haven't seen, we are up and running on YouTube now. That was an adventure. I spent many days getting that.
Countless hours and days.
Lots of frustration, lots of second guessing life decisions.
Yes.
All of that aside, it is up and running now. All of the episodes, they are uploaded in real time as soon as they're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So make sure you go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, subscribe, like, comment, review, share, send it out to your people. We would greatly appreciate that. As you know, we don't charge for subscribers. Our channel is not to make a profit or to be, a money-making machine. No. We want to make it accessible and open to everybody. You. Right.
And us.
Make sure you are sharing with everyone.
Absolutely.
So as we get started, who do we have today, Ryan?
Today we have another good friend of mine, fellow reframer, Kerry, who's from up northeast. We're going to bring her in and talk about her journey. Good morning, Kerry.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I love your sweater. That color is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you so much. Wasn't quite sure what to wear.
It's perfect.
It is.
I wore my hair down to compensate for the fact that I'm in a hoodie that I've had on all day.
I don't do my hair anymore, so
This is actually like 3-day-old, like non-wash hair. I did one of those where I took it down and put dry shampoo in it, and I thought, okay, are we having a moment on our own?
It looks great.
Okay.
It looks
Thank
great.
you. I did nothing.
I'm usually in a hoodie, and I thought I would dress up for this.
Yeah, that's me today.
You look gorgeous.
Really.
How's the weather up east? Did it get hit with any snow yet?
No snow yet. We got a lot of rain yesterday, and we're getting more today and tomorrow, but we haven't had any rain in like weeks, a month maybe. So we need that, but it's definitely it's turned cold. We had a pretty mild fall, fortunately, but I just walked the dog. It's in the 40s. It's going to be cold. It looks like snow next week. So
that's crazy because that's what it is here.
Yeah, it was sleeting.
It's hard to believe.
It was sleeting all the way to drop our daughter off at school this morning. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we normally don't get it this soon. It's normally like the holidays are over, no one's festive, and then like February, March, it snows.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we've gotten snow in October here before, but not in a while. We haven't had a lot of snow the last few years, so we'll see.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Cool. Well, want to go ahead and dive in. Wanted to ask you, you're 2.5 years sober now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
What made you change your relationship with alcohol?
That's a great question. I honestly was just so fed up with my own shit. And I was so tired of being so tired all the time. I was having those 3 a.m. wake ups, and I wasn't even blaming them on alcohol because towards the end of my drinking, I wasn't really an everyday drinker. Like I sure was during the first year and a half or so of COVID. But, I tried to reel things in and was trying to cut back because things had gotten really out of control. And my mental health was just shit. And it took me a long time to realize that was alcohol induced because I would get those 2 or 3 a.m. wake ups no matter what day of the week. Like even on days that I didn't drink the day before, I would still get those wake ups. And I just started feeling like I wanted to just go to sleep for a really, really long time and not wake up. And that scared me. I wasn't suicidal, but I kind of was like, I just want to not live right now. Like, I just want to be sleeping. I'm so tired. So that was pretty scary. And, I had done things that I said I would never do. So I said I would never drive drunk with my kids. And then I did. I said I would never put them in a dangerous situation. And I put them in several. And I was just so tired of my own shit. And when I finally started like kind of putting the connection that like maybe alcohol is really the reason that my anxiety and my mental health is just shit, I decided that I was going to try to take a break. And that break that was intentionally supposed to be 30 days has now led me to be almost 1,000. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And I guess that's how you discovered, is that how you discovered and when you discovered Reframe, or did that come later on?
Yeah, no, well, I had been trying to cut back on my own for a while, and I did like this thing called Cutback Coach. But all it was an accountability text. So you would just text in how many drinks you wanted to have, and then you text in every time you had a drink. So then it would kind of like tell you like it's time to stop or 2 left or whatever, you're over your limit. That just like did nothing for me, right? Because I would just lie. And so I think through that, and I started listening to like a podcast a while ago. I think it was called like Take a Break, and it was about a woman just like taking a break from alcohol. So I was definitely like putting the feelers out there, and Reframe found me, and it was the day after Thanksgiving 3 years ago where I just woke up and I was just like, I have got to stop this. I've got to stop that. So this was November of 2021. Reframe found me, and so I'm coming up on 3 years on Reframe next week. So.
What?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is your sober date?
April 3rd, 2022.
Wow. That's incredible. That's incredible. You know, when we have parents on these podcasts, I always commend y'all. You're so honest and transparent about the relationships with your kids, right? Because it is so complicated. And I say that because nobody ever wants to hurt their kids. Nobody ever goes, you know what? I'm going to get like hammered tonight and get in the car and fuck those kids. You know, that's like not how that works. But pun intended, when you are drinking or even when you're just in that mental state of mind, you are no longer in the driver's seat. And that was I can relate to that from a different perspective, because I remember in the thick of your drinking, that was a big argument because our daughter was little and be like, I want to go with daddy, and saying, no, you can't. And then you saying she's fine and driving, and, you know, addiction, alcohol, mental illness, it rots everything around you, because it's like, do you make a bad decision or a worse decision? So I say all of that to say, like, I'll tell you, like I've told everyone else, thank you so much for being honest and transparent about that. And it just like flowed off your mouth. Like, this was me, that accountability. Like, you can tell that you really are, like, as you know, y'all say, balls deep in your sobriety, because you're not ashamed to really wear that on your sleeve. And I don't want to say it's pride, but I mean, that is a scar that has made you so strong and beautiful today. So I want to thank you, because there are a lot of parents out there listening, and they get stuck in that dark cycle of, I can't believe I did that. And then they keep drinking and using. And it's important for us to talk about those things.
I mean, I'll share this. And it's one of my lowest moments was like, we were driving back from a friend's house, and I thought I was fine to drive, and my daughter was in the back seat. My husband and my son, we had 2 cars for some reason. And I took a turn really close to my house and just kind of like nicked the edge of another car that was like coming out of the street. And I was like, fuck, like I am either going to jail. I'm going to like, I'm in so much trouble right now, but they were cool. I completely took responsibility and like backed away, and like it was such a small accident. The guy was like, don't worry about it. But I was like, that is so bad. And then I didn't stop after that, though. That wasn't my rock bottom. I then learned that if I'm going to drive my kids, I will only allow myself to have 3 drinks, which is still way too many to have your kids in the car with. Now I know. But I always thought I was fine after 3, right? And so, yeah, I'll share that just if it helps anyone else, that like, I've been there, and that wasn't enough to get me to stop that day. So,
yeah, I've been in similar situations. I mean, it's sad to say, I've gotten pulled over, I don't know how many times, but I've got a couple DUIs, and I was able to get out of them.
Ugh.
on technicality shit and stuff like that. So when you get pulled over on top of that and you talk your way out of it, or somebody's with you that can drive, you honestly think you're fucking bulletproof.
Yeah. Right.
And, what's that old saying, man or woman takes a drink and then the drink takes the man or woman.
Right.
That, when that shit kicks in, all your your reasonability and shit just goes flying out the window. I mean, you just kind of, you're like, oh, I got this. I can get away with it.
Yeah.
Until you don't.
Yeah.
Which would be the ultimate rock bottom. But, yeah, I mean, I hear where you're coming from. That's rough. And I've been there just way too many times. Thank God I'm never going to be there again.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's rough.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And you are helping a lot of people by saying that, our platform is so that people know that this is a safe space to talk about things. And, no, we're not condoning drinking and driving with your kids, right? But we've had so many people on the podcast just reach out to us where they're afraid to really talk about the raw, real truth of their situation because they're afraid of judgment or, something bad happening to them. And so opening up these conversations, I love when we have parents on here and even people who are non-parents, we have people who talk about relationships with their mom and their sister. But parents always get me because in your in your sober mind, you think, oh, that must have been the thing that made you stop. And it's like, I don't think a lot of people realize when you are that deep into that sort of mental illness and addiction, it doesn't, unfortunately, because you are not in the driver's seat.
Right.
And so I commend you for that.
Yeah. And then just the shame, Ryan, like the shame that just comes along with that. Like I was saying before, like every morning I'd wake up, or not every morning, if I had a big binging episode, which was turning into being every weekend, it was just like that. What did I do? Who did I hurt? Who did I text? Like that shame is just like so bad, and you don't talk about it. And then it just sits and it festers and it grows and then you drink to hide it. And it's just like the whole cycle. So I do think it's really important for people like you, Ryan, and myself just to share our stories out loud because it will help somebody. And I did a few of these, like my early days of on Reframe. I did a couple other podcasts and I was like, I just always wanted to share because I was like, if I had heard from someone like me when I was still in it, I might have made the decision sooner, Right.
So yeah, and when you're talking about, the stuff festering up and building, and that's really when, the stress and anxiety comes in, big time. It's like, you run into somebody that maybe you text while you've been drinking that night and you don't know if you're okay or not, or if I hurt their feelings or offended them or whatever. It just heightens everything. So with that, and I'm sure you went through that as well, how has sobriety changed your, stress, anxiety, mental health? How's all that come around full circle? Well, I'll tell you what,
I think that like my day-to-day anxiety diminished pretty immediately upon stopping drinking. And I'm lucky in that respect. And I'm lucky that my sleep became very good very quickly. And I think that, fortunately, that really gave me the momentum in the beginning to keep going was because I realized like just how bad I was feeling before. So I would say that my like generalized anxiety and my hypochondria has definitely gotten a lot better. And I'm just like much better at handling my stress. And I'm much better at recognizing when I'm burnt out and I need to step away and take a break, which before when I was drinking, if I was burnt out or overstimulated because my kids were really little when I was drinking, I was just drinking, right? And I wasn't recognizing that what I really needed was just like I needed to relief, but I needed to find it in a different way. So for my mental health, that has improved and I've gotten a lot better at advocating for myself and setting those boundaries with my kids when they are overstimulating me and they're old enough now that I can talk to them about it and be like, when you don't get enough sleep and you tend to be grouchy and maybe you're kind of snapping at me, like I'm doing that. I don't want to do that to you. So I'm now going to step away and take some time. So that's helped. But I figured out during my last Reframe speaker share in July that I had a lot of shit to work through that I guess I was drinking over, and I didn't realize it. And I had that, my first speaker share, I felt like empowered and inspired and like I kicked ass. And this second one brought up so much from my childhood that I was like, oh, wow, like I haven't really done the work yet. I've done this day-to-day managing and becoming a better mom and spouse, but I have not dug down and like gone and talked to that, to my younger version of myself and healed that. So I finally started seeing a therapist regularly about 3 months ago. And that's helped a lot. But it's like every time I see her, there's something new. She's like, I was looking at my intake notes and there's a lot of stuff here that we've just not talked about yet. Yeah. I know.
You're going through and like highlighting off certain things you've talked about for that half hour or hour.
That's so funny because when I first started therapy many years ago, I remember one of the first things that the therapist I connected with, she was like, okay, one of two things is going to happen. It happens with everybody. Okay. And it may be a combination of both. You are either going to get really pissed off and walk out of the room and never come back, or you're going to get really pissed off. You're going to walk out of the room and then you're going to come back next week and be like, okay, maybe we should talk about that. So yeah, I get that too.
Yeah. And it's funny you bring that up because, you know, I just hit 18. I'm 18 months now. Thank you. And I was in that same headspace as you were probably in July. I all of a sudden about a month ago had all these feelings come up and I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was in a real weird headspace. Had nothing to do with alcohol. Didn't want anything to do with it. But I just kept drumming up all this old stuff. And I couldn't really figure out where my place was. Do I like myself? Does my family like me? What the hell am I doing here? And I actually got help. And we just talked about this on a podcast. I got help and I'm seeing a therapist now. And we had our first session and it was like, you know, it was an hour long and I got so much out in like 30, 40 minutes. Yeah. And it felt like a huge weight lifted off my shoulder because I've actually been able to talk to somebody, you know, a non, you know, somebody that's not in favor of me, you know, whatever, like knows nothing about me, neutral third party, and just getting it all out. And her telling me, you know, listen, it's not that bad. You know, you just have, you know, maybe you have to set a boundary with, you know, this person in your family, or maybe you need to look at this the wrong way, or maybe this person's having a bad day and it's not as shitty as you think it is. Yeah. And it's just weird because, like you said, it's so much more work on top of the work we're already doing. I mean, the good news is we've made the day-to-day work kind of easy, as I'm sure you've been at that point where you don't even really think about it anymore. But now we've got to dive into that mental side of what we've kind of put on the back burner like we used to do when we were drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I said to my therapist, I'm like, is it because I'm got 45 years of shit that I haven't talked about? Yeah. Like, I feel like I have so much stuff, but yeah. Yeah. It's, I know the first year is so much focused on just not drinking and just getting through the, you know, the first of everything. And then, you know, and then I'm like, oh God, there's so much I need to dig into to forgive and to not forget, but to accept and move on from and learn to love myself again. Like I thought I did. I thought by getting sober, I was like, I love myself again. And then like 2 years later, I'm like, I don't love myself again. I don't know what I was thinking 2 years ago. Yeah. I was all up on a pink cloud and now I'm down and I'm like, I still don't love myself like I thought I did. So, you know.
And it just highlights how complicated that love is, right? Like we grow up in a society that makes us believe that love is just this like one-dimensional thing. And, you know, I'm glad that you say that because something that I've noticed and talk about is y'all, and this is going to be sort of like a question, not really formatted in a question form, if that makes sense. I've seen this with anybody I care about getting sober. And I'll say you're in that group too, because anybody who's part of this Reframe group is part of the inner circle of people I love and adore and care about. But it takes a while for just your brain chemistry to level back out. And honestly, I don't know y'all will know better than me, like however many years you were in your addiction, and then it takes like double that amount, or like 5 years, 10 years, 20, you know what I'm saying, to get back to baseline. And something I've seen with you, I'm sure that it's happening with you too, is like, you're right, that first year, it's just like, don't drink, make better decisions, make the list, work the program, because it has to be a little robotic at first because it's a muscle memory and you're retraining your mind. Like there are scientific biological things, chemistry going on.
Right.
But then after that, you actually have to sit with those feelings. And so something I pointed out with you was, I was like, well, if I seem like I'm not freaking out, it's because I am used to processing these types of complicated emotions and being able to sit with them and kind of pick out like, well, there's not really anything I can do about that. So I'm going to allow myself to stress because I might have mental health stuff, but the numbing of that was not there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you're going through that, I remember one of my therapy sessions where I felt the same way. I was like, all of a sudden I felt I was all this progress and I was doing so good. And now like everything's bothering me and I'm crying every day. And she's like, that's progress. That's good. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I feel like shit. She's like, right. But you feel, right?
Right.
You feel. And I've noticed that with you too, is we, again, live in a society where it's like you take pain medication so you're not in pain, and you do this and you do that and we numb. But those feelings, that anxiety, that pain, it is your body's natural way of highlighting something for you and communicating with you.
Yeah.
And the shittiest part about it is it's like, but it feels fucking terrible. No, like I don't want to deal with that. And I've collectively seen how, you talk to your people on Reframe, you talk to me, but therapy is good because like your Reframe buddies, they are committed to you. Me, I'm committed to you. Same thing for you. Your people are committed to you. So when you talk to them about this stuff, you get help from everybody that you need. But a therapist is like, I'm not here to tell you what to do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I am not here to rescue you. I am here to just be a logical voice of reason, and I am a neutral third party. Like if you never walk through that door again, that's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why therapy is so good is, right? They don't necessarily tell you anything that's mind blowing,
Mm-hmm.
but you get it all out and you're able to process those emotions. And, yeah, it fucking sucks in all of the best ways, like it's the most complicated thing. But just hearing y'all talking, my question too is like, what have you noticed? Like, what are some things with y'all being, a year and a half, 3 years sober that have allowed you to sit in that shittiness? Like, what do you do with all of that outside of therapy and Reframe? Like, what do you find that helps you really allow yourself to process those feelings?
One thing that I have started doing is, cause I have like a lot of regret and a lot of, like experiences that happened that I allowed people to treat me a certain way. And I feel really like ashamed that I would have let people treat me a certain way. So I've done a lot of like inner child, like worksheets where I've written out what was going on, how I was feeling, and like just writing it out to be like, okay, I was 19. Like I really didn't know that people were treating me like shit. Right. And like, I don't want to get into the details of it, but it was really helpful because I went back and I'm like, oh, I let people treat me like shit because like I didn't think I was worthy, right? And then where does that come from? And so I don't know if I'm answering your question, but like, so that is a tool that I've been using. Is I hate to say journaling, but yeah, like journaling.
Mm-hmm. No, you're beautifully answering the question. And the reason that I asked it is because I think that outside of just the quitting drinking or quitting using, in the program, I think where a lot of people get stuck is, what do you do in those moments where you cannot escape? And it seems like a very surface level question, but it's not, because that is really where it is. So there's not a rescue there. Sometimes it's at 3:00 in the morning. Sometimes it's in a moment where you don't have Reframe. You don't have the therapist. You don't it is you and you alone, and you have to sit there and process that.
Right.
And
well, that's been with me. It's
unbearable.
my thoughts. That was a big part, about 60, 90 days in, that's when I started journaling. And that's been a big part of mine, because when I have something come up, a feeling, a thought, whatever it is, that I can't remove it real quick, that I know is, bad or not good, that's what I do. I just write the shit out.
Yeah.
And then once I write it out, it's so amazing. It just poof, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And if I need to go back and reflect on it, I can. I've got it written down, but that's helped me out tremendously. And trust me, I'm a person that hated fucking writing. In school, couldn't stand it. If you would ask me to journal 3 years ago,
I know, right?
I'd say, kiss my ass. You're an idiot. That's something my teenage daughter would do. But now I love it. I mean, I've got like 5 or 6 journals just full, because I just sit and write out, my feelings every day. What went well, what went shitty, what somebody said to me, how I reacted to it. Man, that's been a huge turning point for me throughout this whole thing, especially when there's not a meeting, or you don't feel like reaching out to somebody over it. If you can do it yourself, that's because at the end of the day, you're responsible for you. And any way you can combat those feelings, thoughts, whatever it is, that's the way to do it.
Not to pivot onto something funny, but this is just how my brain works. I just had a fantastic idea for new merch, and you can be in on this, Kerry, on this podcast. I'm going to create like little childhood diaries with little like locks and everything for you guys, and make them all about like journaling and shadow work and stuff.
That's
and start
great.
selling them
with the little key that you always lose.
Yeah, like I'll even like, do you like, surely you remember, I'm sure you remember, Kerry, like the journal, or not the journals, they were diaries. These are not journals, these are diaries. And they had like kind of the film where the water and the glitter that would kind of like flow back.
My daughter has one.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to have one, and I'm going to put like NA beers in there to like go around, and little like reframe logos. See, now I have, you get a royalty on it, Kerry.
All right.
You helped prompt that. Christmas gifts. Sorry, my brain is like so crazy sometimes. I just had that in my head.
So since becoming sober, how has relationship within your family changed? With the kids, husband, all that.
So that my relationship with my kids is like so much better. Like I used to just like pass out in their beds, before they were sleeping on the weekends, and again waking up with that total shame. So like last night we were just like sitting in my daughter's room, and my husband was in the shower, and we were getting ready for bed, and it was just me, my son, and my daughter, and we were just like chatting about like, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but we were just talking. And I was just like, I would never have had these experiences, because when I was drinking, I was constantly annoyed, especially at bedtime. It was like, either I'm so tired and grouchy because I don't sleep, or I just want to get through this so I can get back to my drink most nights. And so I like can listen to them. Like I've had some, like my son in particular, I'm so proud of him, because he like really can talk about his feelings. Because I listen to him. And we've had like a few, just like a handful of like pretty deep conversations, especially at bedtime, which I know is maybe a little bit of a ploy to like not go to sleep. But like he tells me things, and I don't think I would have gotten any of this from him if I was still drinking, because I wouldn't have been listening. So that is good. And they're just like my little people. Like I love our family of 4, but I made my social circle really small when I was drinking. And I like my therapist calls it that I built a castle of alcoholics. I don't like to use that term, but I did. I had a castle of drunk people, right? And no one came in and no one left. And so I had to step away from that social circle. I tried for a long time to stay in it. Not a long time, several months though, to stay in it and prove that I was still fun and I could do all the things. But at the end of the day, I was like, if I keep hanging out with these people, I'm going to eventually probably drink. And quite honestly, they're pretty annoying now. So I stepped away. My relationship with my husband has been something that it's part of the reason I actually started therapy, because I really wanted to work on our relationship, because we used to just bond over drinking, right? And I'm not blaming him, but like when I was on cutback for those first several months, I was I would get like Monday through Thursday of not drinking, and I'd get to Friday and I'd be like, I'm not going to drink tonight. And then ultimately, it was like that was our happy hour. It was 3 o'clock every Friday. My husband and I would sit down and we'd have a drink before the kids came home. And so that was hard because that's how we bonded. And I didn't know how to like connect, because another thing is that like I got really used to going to bed really early when I first quit drinking. It was like, just go to bed. And now I just go to bed early. So we don't have a lot of time together at night. Just because our kids stay up until 9 and then I go to bed. But he was drinking still in my first year and a half. And it was a real struggle for me. I'll be honest. It wasn't the alcohol that bothered me. It was the like, he has a few drinks and he's disconnected from the three of us. And the three of us now are like getting super connected. So for a while, I wasn't sure that I even wanted to be married to someone that still drank. But last October of 2023, he took a big long break and almost a whole year. And now he just drinks like, he doesn't really drink in front of me. He might have like one drink on like a Friday night and a Saturday night, or he might, if he goes golfing with his buddy, he might have a few drinks, but he doesn't really drink in front of me. So fortunately, that has definitely helped us connect and find other ways to connect now. So that is still something that we're working on now. It's like, what do we do now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
We're still working on a lot of things too. And we say this on every podcast. Like, I know that we get a lot of people that reach out and they say that we're an inspiration or this, that, or another, but we are, well, thank you. But, you know, we're not going to get on here and argue on the podcast and be like, God, you were such a piece of shit last night, you know, like, but, you know, yeah, of course he was a piece of shit last night. He's my husband. We still like, you know, get on each other's nerves. And it's so difficult because our best memories were while you were drinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you've only been sober for 18 months. And I say only in relation to the topic we're talking about, like as opposed to us being married for almost 15 years, right? So when we look back on vacations and our wedding and like even our daughter, like coming home from the hospital, like all these things, we didn't realize then, but now I realize it is all encompassing. And, you know, we still run into those where I'll be like, oh my gosh, do you remember when? And he's like, no,
yeah. And
I don't.
And this is what I said at the beginning when I was like, I was drunk when I met you. I was drunk when I married you. And I was drunk when we had kids. Like, and now I'm trying to like, who are we without that? Because that's how we met at a bar, you know? That was, you know, part of our courting and our wedding.
That's how we met.
Yeah. So it's hard, but you know, I think what's important is like, we're both growing, right? Separately and together. So.
And that's what's important. I mean, we sat down when I was a bitch the first year that he was sober. I'm not going to lie. I'd had that wall up, and I know you've listened to the other podcast, but I was just like, and I'll be honest, I'm like, fuck you. I don't care. I mean, I was done. Serious. I mean, I really was like, I was still on the, I'm saving up money for a lawyer. This is performative, you know, cause you get to that point. Right. But when we finally sat down and thought, when I was like, okay, I think this might be like a legitimate thing that's happening. We had those conversations. I'm like, you know, what if we don't like each other? Yeah. I mean, it was the same way we met at a bar during a karaoke contest. I mean, I gave him a big sloppy drunken kiss. Like my breath had to, I mean, I probably looked like the craziest piece of train wreck. My ass was probably hanging out of my pants. Like there's no telling. Same thing, like not for TMI, but we consummated our marriage before we got married because we knew we'd be too drunk to do it afterwards, so when you change, when that's such a big change in your life, you're like, what if we don't like each other,
we don't connect anymore,
and we don't connect anymore, and there are still some things that we don't connect on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There are still some things, honestly, Kerry, every single day we look at each other and we're like, we are simply not going to agree on this.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a conversation, I won't go into detail, but yesterday, and I'm like, we disagree on this. We will never agree on it, but we're just going to move on.
Yeah.
Because it's not earth shattering.
That's right.
And so for us to be an inspiration to people, it's really just, we are a work in progress too.
Every day.
Can I ask you a question and you don't have to answer it? Do you guys do couples therapy together?
We do not, but it is something that we definitely want to do. So, again, and I'm sure you know this, but just for people listening, I started my own mental health journey, 4 years ago, something like that. My brother got sober. He was in active addiction for 20 years. And so when he got sober, it just prompted me to really want to do something because I missed him and wanted to be present for him. And I was really just over this person right here. I was like, this is just not doing it for me. And so I put that barrier up and I, really quit enabling and reacting. And so I had done therapy and got with a doctor, got diagnosed OCD, ADHD, depression, like all of these things,
All the initials.
All the initials. And in the moment, it was him honestly kind of mocking and making fun of all of it, right? Which now was just because it highlighted his own stuff. So he was trying to tear mine down. But being like, oh yeah, like take another pill, all that stuff. And it was bad. Like, I'm not trying to make it funny. It was bad. And then he got sober and he's doing therapy. So I think it's 100% something that we want to do. But I was doing the therapy on my own because I knew that he wasn't going to join, and he just started therapy. So he kind of wants to get that baseline. And so I think now really would be the time that we would do it, because what I would like to do, and I think you too, like you have your own therapy, I have my own therapy, and then we have our therapy together.
Yeah.
Because the biggest thing that has been for us, that has helped us, honestly, is we allow each other our own autonomy. Like, I do not need to know every single thing that you are doing and thinking and feeling and who you're with and all of the things. And I still get a lot of people who are like, he travels and goes out of town and he meets these reframers, and our daughter, I don't remember who it was. You met a reframer while you were out of town and you took a picture and you had your arm around her. And we are like, when I say we are the least jealous people, I mean, he used to be when he was drinking, but now that sober, like, we just are not jealous people. And she goes, who is that? And I said, I think that's one of your dad's reframe friends. And he was like, why is he hugging her like that? I was like, because they're friends. And it was just funny to see that on her face. But people ask me, they're like, do you not ever worry? And I'm like, I mean, I'll have some intrusive thoughts, but if you're going to, like, if anybody's going to cheat, if anybody's going to drink, they're going to do it no matter what. And I can't project those feelings onto you. Those are my feelings. Those are the things that I'm still working through because of not just your addiction, but other things. But therapy, couples therapy, all of those things, I mean, they really are kind of a requirement. Do you know what I mean? Because the thing that we struggle with the most, if I'm being honest, is we are not great communicators with each other, which is so funny because we're so good at it on the podcast and we talk about these things and we're so open. And this podcast, believe it or not, is almost a sub therapy for us because it forces us to talk about stuff. I mean, full transparency, there have been times where we've been fucking pissed at each other before we have hopped on a podcast.
10 minutes for a podcast,
about something stupid. And then the podcast kind of just like dulls it down. But, we still, like, you still have a hard time getting your anger under control. And you don't react to it anymore. But he's very much a silent treatment person. See, I'm the kind of person that if there's an issue, we hash it out, we get it done. Doesn't matter if it takes 12 hours, and when we walk away from it, we're done. And he's a processor. And that causes us to butt heads. So it's absolutely a work in progress. And we like each other now. We'll see about tomorrow.
Yeah, see how tomorrow is. Today's good. Today's a good day.
But I think that that's the biggest thing is I don't want to be his everything, and he doesn't want to be my everything. That's not realistic. I'll never understand what it feels like to be an alcoholic or an addict. It doesn't matter how many people I love who struggle with that. It doesn't matter how bad my mental health is. I will never understand that. So I can't be that resource for you. Even if I want to, I can't. I have no idea what that feels like. And I think that that's been the biggest thing that's helped us. You know, we are not like, you are not my other half. You are my husband. You are a whole person in and of yourself. What do you think? Do you agree?
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it did. No, because, I actually found my therapist because I wanted to go to couples therapy. And then when I approached my husband about it, he's like, I don't really think we need that. I was like, well, I'm going to go to therapy and I'm going to work on my shit. And then we can reevaluate where we're at.
That's where I was for years. I was very, nah, we're good.
Yeah.
I don't waste money on that.
And we actually did go to therapy one time while he was still drinking. And the therapist looked him in the face and told him, do you realize you're an alcoholic and your drinking is what's causing all of this? And he pretty much was like, fuck you, I'm never coming back. I mean, and that's how that was.
Yeah.
But when I started my therapy, I just looked at him and I said, listen, I would like for you to do this with me. And at any point in time, you can jump in. But I want you to know I'm starting therapy. And the vast majority of my conversations are going to be about our marriage. And you won't be there to share your side, to represent yourself. But the subject matter still remains. So that's on you, buddy.
There you go.
It didn't do anything in the moment to help, though. No. It didn't do anything. It helped me, but it didn't do anything for him.
Thank you for answering that. That was helpful.
It's a work in progress. So
every day.
We'll see.
We are.
So what does the future hold for you?
I don't know. You're going to ask that question.
After being a certain way for so many years, and then 2.5 years, which seems like a long time, but obviously it's a very minute time of your life.
Yeah, it's like a long time in the respective reframe, and it's infinity, but it's not a long time in the full scope of things. I honestly don't know how to answer that.
Do you have any future goals that you've thought about since being sober? No,
I made 2024 a year of no goals, which may sound silly.
Yeah, but that's a good thing.
My goals were always okay. I used to have this goal every year was be the best version of yourself, and that is so open ended, right? So, I think to just continue to do the work every day, and I don't want to say I don't have goals, but I do like to add a new challenge or a new habit in. So I made 2024 a year of doing no races because I'm a runner, but I'm not a marathon or anything crazy like that. I just want to go out and have fun, and I decided that when I race, it's not fun for me. So, but I just added yoga in, so probably just continuing to do more of the internal work. One thing I'm working on my therapist with, trigger warning, is death anxiety. I have a lot of anxiety around death. And so that's something that she's kind of almost suggesting I do some sort of, oh my God, what is the word for it? Exposure therapy for it. So not to bring the mood down, but that's something. But other than my future, I don't know. I'm very content where I am right now. I'm very at peace. My life is very peaceful, and I just want to keep it that way, and continue to just learn how to forgive myself, to just the constant inner work of just trying to maintain a peaceful and happy existence, because I was not happy for a very long time. And I know that that's not going to come from, I get a lot of happiness and joy from my kids, but I know that they're not responsible for my happiness. So trying to make sure that I am going to be the responsible one for my happiness, because it's not going to come from my kids and it's not going to come from my husband. It has to come from me. So I think just my future is making sure that I don't lose sight of that, because that is what makes me so grateful to be sober. and so that's that.
Yeah.
No big plans.
So it's okay.
You know what?
There's nothing wrong with that. I think you answered it
I was going to
beautifully.
say, you know what would make that so much easier is like a beautiful glitter-filled diary
Absolutely.
with all the family. I can't get it out of my head. I'm kidding.
No, my daughter lost her key for it, so I was using like a
so you always did.
Yes.
Or just rip or cut the plastic and get in the darn thing.
Yeah, MacGyver.
So what kind of advice would you give, anytime you're on meetings and stuff like that, someone comes on who's just fresh, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and really kind of questioning, why am I doing this? What kind of advice would you give to that newcomer, new to sobriety, that's just can't get a grasp on things?
That can't get a grasp on things. I mean, at some point, hopefully, like, you'll have your last day one. You have to just keep trying. Find your people. Like, finding Reframe was, I mean, what a gift. I know I did the work, but I might have been able to just quit drinking, but I just have learned so much about myself, and I've learned so much about, like, just life and mental health and clarity and gratitude from being on Reframe. Like, just stick with it. And if it's not working, find something else. But, like, no one regrets quitting drinking. Like, at the end of the day, that's my advice for anyone struggling. Like, it might be hard right now, but you are not going to regret it. At some point, you are going to never want to go back to it. And so just remember that and just keep coming back, because eventually someone will say something or you will try something and you will, I mean, I believe that you will find that your life is so much better without it, and it's so much more manageable.
That's what I think. It's always going to be that moment where it just clicks.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, now I know what this is like. It happens for everybody.
Yeah.
But there's no like time frame where you can say, oh, it's between 2 and 3 months. I mean, it could be 2 years, 3 years, a year, a month.
Yeah.
For me, it clicked pretty quick, but my mindset, I think, was a lot different than most people that I've talked to, run into. Some people, it can just take so long. You never know. It's all about mindset, drive, and I guess what's going on in your life.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about it for a really, really, really long time, like several years. And like I said, like, I was like, I'm just going to take a 30-day break and reset myself. But I also knew, like, this might turn into a forever thing. And I was, like, very ready for that. So much like you, like, it was hard, but I mean, I was really ready for it. And I was at the right time to receive Reframe and to receive it all. And then it worked. So.
That's wonderful.
And I'm sure the sobriety's helped out the running.
Oh my God, yeah. I know I don't like to race, but like my miles per minute dropped like a whole minute when I stopped drinking. My resting heart rate dropped like 10 beats per minute within the first few months. It's insane.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, that's what I couldn't believe. I just got back from the doctor like a week ago, and I could not believe, like, my panel,
Yeah.
and even he's like, from a year and a half ago, it's like, wow. And it's like Benjamin Button shit, or not Benjamin Button. Wait, just age backwards, whatever that is.
That's Benjamin Button.
Oh, is it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Are you going to do 75 hard again? I could definitely do that because I already don't drink. I already exercise like twice a day, but.
So I finished for a year.
Yeah, I know.
And I still do it every day.
Yeah.
I don't keep up with it. It's so instilled in my head. I get up, I do the workouts, I read 10 pages. It's like and I drink a gallon of water every day. It's to the point I don't even keep track of it because it's so every day to me. It's like I even told her, it's like, what do I do now? I mean, I don't want to rest. I want to keep going.
Yeah.
I don't run as much because my doctor said, you're going to kill your knees by running every day.
Yeah.
So I've kind of changed things up, and I don't lift weights every day because that's bad for you, apparently. The more you know. But I've tweaked some stuff, and then Jessica and I have talked about we're actually going to put like a challenge out in January.
Cool.
And we're going to do just maybe like 30 days and make it a little more achievable, more
inclusive,
very inclusive for everybody. So it'd be kind of fun. We're going to do something like that.
Cool. Awesome.
So I'll get you out of here on this last question.
Yeah.
And it's always my favorite. So you got to have a great pee story.
I mean,
That's
I
when you
have a
were
great
drinking.
sober pee story from just a few weeks ago. But
Well, now I want two of them.
all right. Well, I'll tell you my drunk one. I couldn't really think of one. I'm like, I peed in a parking garage once, but like one time I was on a business trip and my colleague and I were sharing a room and we were out like really hard. I think we were in Philly, maybe. Yeah, Philly. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I was just like, Andrea, I'm soaking wet. But it didn't smell like pee. She was like, dude, you just peed the bed. No big deal. Like, come sleep with me. And I was like, I couldn't get it because I was like, it doesn't smell. And she's like, when there's that much of it, it doesn't even. But similarly, like, okay, so I'll tell you my sober one. So I went on, met up with a bunch of reframers out in the Berkshires a few weeks ago, and I was driving one of them back to Boston Logan Monday morning, and like we left at like 4 a.m. We only stopped once. We dropped her off at Logan. It was like 8 a.m. and I had to pee so bad, but I couldn't like pull over anywhere. And there was so much traffic leaving the airport. And I don't know if you've probably been to Logan. You have to take a tunnel in and a tunnel out. And so I was like, when I get to the tunnel, I'll just pee in this Dunkin' Donuts cup. And so I did, and it did not go well. I put a blanket under my butt. I had a blanket in the car. I was like, I'll put a blanket and I'll pee in this cup. No one will see me because it'll be dark in the tunnel. And I'm telling you, the cup was like full. And like I sat in it the whole way home. I was like, well, now I can't stop anywhere. Now I'm covered in pee, and it was.
Now you've done it.
It was awful. So that's my story.
Yeah, I've done that with a few of those 20, like 20 ounce.
A girl could
things.
never.
Oh yeah, I get one, and you start filling it up, and you're like, well, fuck, now what? You try to pinch off and find another one.
Now I have this pee-filled cup.
That's right.
In the cup holder.
That's right. Hope to God you're not hitting potholes.
Or hoping to God you don't just go on like me. Like I would just go on autopilot and accidentally like take a sip of it, not even realizing. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
No, I know that's gross, but like.
Yeah.
No, it just makes me think of when I used to chew tobacco and you'd spit it in something and accidentally. Oh, yeah.
Trigger one.
I'm done.
Sounds awful.
That does sound awful. Those were two fantastic pee stories, by the way.
I love the last one the best.
That was dead sober.
Yes. Well, Kerry, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you guys.
It was
that
a
was
pleasure.
Wonderful.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
such a great friend. We appreciate it so much. And we will see you soon.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Bye, Kerry. If you love the podcast, which I know you do, please like, subscribe,
and hit that notification bell to get
Boom.
notified every time we post.
That's right. Dropping them, baby. Word.